Hello everyone, welcome. Let me share my screen here and we can get started. Welcome fuelers. I see you coming in. Make sure you guys are saying what's up to us in the chat room and leaving any questions you have in the Q&A section. Okay, check out your controls. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm messing with my controls. Making sure everybody can see each other. All right, let's get started. We're right here at 2:01. My name is Corey Jo Biddle, and I'm the Executive Director for Fuel Milwaukee, and welcome to our first edition of The Majors. The Majors is a new program that we're doing through Fuel, which is an exploration of different kinds of careers. So what we do is pick people that had the same major, similar coursework in college, and then look at the very different paths that they've taken in their career. So lots of folks that we know right now that are quarantined and kind of have some time to think and reflect on their lives and their careers and what they're doing, and thinking, you know, if they want to take the leap and to do something completely different or level up their current career. So we thought this would be the perfect time to have this kind of conversation about the relationship between where you start, where you end up, and where you're going. So welcome all of you. I just want to say thank you to my panelists who are all here today. Let me see, I'm gonna make sure I got gallery style going so you can see all of them. I'm gonna take off the screen in a second so you'll be able to see their faces a little bit better, but I'm gonna introduce the panelists initially and then give them each a little bit of time to talk to you about their decision to major in a communications field and then the path that they took to get to where they are right now. And then we'll dig a little bit and find out what the next step might be. Those secret yearnings that they might have professionally that we'll be the first to hear about because I'm such a good interviewer and I'll just pull it out of them. Very Oprah-like, okay? So Kristine Naidl is the Executive Vice President and Managing Director for Public Relations at Laughlin Constable. Welcome, Kristine.
Thank you. Hello.
We also have here Ryan Thompson, who's the President of Mention Marketing. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
And Vivian King, founder and principal of Vivian King Connections. She's also an authoress. She just released a book. Hi, Vivian.
Hi.
Yeah, we'll get into that book a little later. Alex Runner is the Senior Director of Internal Communications for XPO Logistics. Hey, Alex.
Hey there.
Dante Houston. For those who don't know, Dante is one of the original fuelers. Without Dante, there would be no me. There would be no fuel. The webinar wouldn't be happening. Dante, I have to give you all the kudos because you were a part of Fuel back in the day when we were called Young Professionals of Milwaukee. Yep. And now you're the Manager of Talent Optimization, go figure, for Titus Talent Strategies. Welcome, Dante.
Thank you, Corey Jo Biddle. Good afternoon, everyone.
And last but not least, we have Bethany Chris. We go way back, me and Bethany. She's the Director of Development for the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. Hi, Bethany.
Hey, Corey. Hey, y'all.
Okay, so I'm going to stop my share here right quick to find out from everyone, how are you all doing before we hop into the conversation with being quarantined, working remotely? Alex, tell me a little bit about what this experience has been for you. I'll go quickly through all of you to check in with you, and then we'll get started with the convo.
Yeah, sure. So we're a global company, and so we've been dealing with this really since January, trying to keep our folks safe in China. We're supply chain, so we actually have the most square footage in the United States for distribution centers, warehouses. Some of our customers are the top, technology, food and beverage, medical devices. So we're essential services. And, I get to work from home remotely right now, but a lot of our folks are on the front line out there. And so we've, done a lot with social distancing, extra cleanings. We've offered what we're calling employee appreciation pay, increasing their compensation during this time. So we're taking people's temperatures as they're coming in. It's a whole new world. And, we're all just adjusting. And I feel very, very fortunate, A, to have a job, because I know a lot of people are out of work during this time, and then B, to support, you know, the frontline heroes who are out there. So that's me.
Absolutely. Yep. Bethany, how about you?
Let me think. So we've been remote for about 6 weeks now, and out in DC, we're used to teleworking. We're used to having to travel. We're used to having to work through our computers. But all the things added to this challenge, you know, the personal crises, hearing about colleagues who they might be coming down with something, or a loved one, it all makes it all feel more intense and more real. And with my job at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, we get to approach COVID from a racial justice standpoint, and like working on this work and seeing the impact that my colleagues have been making. I sent them an email yesterday saying, you know, it's no small thing that you are changing. The work you are doing is helping to change the national narrative around this pandemic and around racial justice. And as exhausted as we feel and as taxed as we feel, we're making a difference. And that's joyful.
It is. Vivian, how about you?
So one of my biggest clients, really, I call them my biggest client because I'm working with Gina Green Harris with the UW School of Medicine and Public Health's Center for Community Engagement in Milwaukee. And so I'm communications advisor for two of her projects, the All of Us Research Program and also the Life Course Initiative for Healthy Families, which targets infant mortality and maternal child health. So UW really had some strict guidelines regarding COVID. They basically had us working remotely for 6 weeks now as well. And so, you know, the non-essential employees. And so we've been having our Zoom meetings. We've been kind of really trying to leverage our social media channels and our website for information to our constituents and our clients and the people that we work with. And so, you know, when I first got on this call, I had a background behind me because, you know, we wanted to mix it up. And so I was in Australia for my last Zoom meeting. So we're trying to mix it up and really, you know, really just try to get the information out there to help people get through this. So right now for our Life Course Initiative for Healthy Families, we're recognizing April, which is National Stress Awareness Month, and we're doing stress tips every day. And so that when people, you know, get on social media, even though social media can be stressful, they can find something that, you know, helps them to stay calm. So I'm doing okay because I was working remotely for the most part anyway. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of my colleagues are kind of getting stir crazy.
Yeah, it's starting to get to that point, but we're just doing what we can to keep each other lifted up. How about you, Dante?
We have been very fortunate at Titus Talent Strategies to have a 100% mobile workforce to begin with. And as we continue to do the work in which we're doing on behalf of our partners, the identifying, attracting, hiring, and really accurately measuring the right person for the right seat, we're now recognizing that the work in which we've put our heart and souls into and growing a mobile workforce, we now have to convey that to all of our partners and our surrounding communities throughout the nation. And so we've been, over the last several weeks, really just putting that information out for everyone to see, enjoy, and give all the tips and tricks that we can to make sure that everyone else feels comfortable in their home offices and in their home environments as well. But our nation continues to, and our region continues to go to work and continue to do the things in which we know will continue to boost the economy eventually. And so we're just fortunate and blessed to be a part of that and making sure that people are, again, having the resources that they need.
Absolutely. How about you, Chris?
We're in our 6th week at Laughlin Constable of working from home, and we've always done some video work between our two offices, Milwaukee and Chicago, but obviously this is to a new extreme. Personally, I'm a little stir crazy. I very much miss my team, and I miss being able to walk down the hall and collaborate with others, but it's working, so it's going fine.
And you, Ryan?
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, homeschooling is a newbie for me. So, yeah, that's a bit of a challenge. Well, it's interesting. Some of us knew each other before jumping on the call. I had worked with Dante at Johnson Controls years back before Alex got there. And I was remote pretty much the whole time. And since then, my career has kept me remote. And now I run a small marketing firm, and we run it virtually. So, you know, we have a couple office locations. I can work from home, and, you know, I can work with my talent across the board. I mean, I wouldn't call us a global company by any means, but, you know, our lead graphic designer is in New Zealand. And as far as my clients, I'm able to pivot and luckily serve them in a capacity that, you know, they're able to find value. So it's a big change at home. Work-wise, not as much, just kind of on overdrive. Everyone's jumping into e-com, more social, more content, things like that.
It's great to see everybody's face, and I'm so glad that you all could hop on this call with me today. We got people listening in that are really curious and ready to hear about your careers. So this is going to be a fun conversation that is a healthy distraction for me anyway, and hopefully inspirational for other folks. So I'm going to go back to my presentation here and share my screen again. And what we'll do is kind of run through everybody's background. So I kind of want to get your origin story, right? So we'll start with you, Kristine. Talk to us a little bit about quickly what you're doing now, but then get into, you know, your major in college, and tell us that story. How did you decide? How did you, settle in on that major, and what was the inspiration behind it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. Right now, I'm the Managing Director of PR for Laughlin Constable, and I have a team of 10 of us that handle large-scale clients across the entire agency, and then also we work independently for just PR services with a number of clients. Looking back to when I was deciding what to do, I had two things that made a difference for me. One was inspiration, and a teacher in a class I took in high school on mass media. And then I had exposure to someone that did public relations. I had an older cousin who at the time was working in an agency in Chicago. And I'll never forget, she would, at family gatherings, share with us that she was working with the Huggies brand and was running baby crawling contests at malls across America. And I thought, that is a dream job. I would love that. And that was what the impetus was for me to look at public relations and communications. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison and participated through their journalism school. But also being in Madison, I got a little bit of the political bug, and I decided to double major in political science as well. And that has been just a really unique and beneficial merger of the two. It opened up the opportunity for me to work in the state capitol as I was finishing up my classes in Madison, and gave me a lot of the exposure that I still think is relevant today as we work on public affairs projects, advocacy type projects, and other challenges for clients. But I also knew I wasn't made for that world full time and wasn't going to have political aspirations. So when I left Madison, I was lucky enough to go into the media realm, and I worked for a small regional magazine, and it was I'm embarrassed to say this, but 1991. And if anyone knows the history around that time, there was quite a recession going on, and it was not a good job market. 1991 was rough, and I was fortunate just to find a job. And it was a little different than what I thought I'd be doing, but I was selling advertising, literally door-to-door cold calling.
Wow.
Clients, and did that toughen up my skin? I will tell you that. That was a hard job, but the publisher was wonderful, and he also gave me opportunities to copy edit and lay out ads and design ads and interview people for the stories. So it was an amazing 11-month experience with a great boss that opened up a lot of opportunities for me. And then I was able to move to Milwaukee, and I started to work for what then was called the Milwaukee Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. Today people might know it more as Impact 211. And I worked there for 3 years doing community relations in Milwaukee. And again, it goes to somebody who I was fortunate enough to work under that really opened my eyes to things that have helped me still today. But my mentor there put me under her wing and really taught me the lay of the land of Southeast Wisconsin and Milwaukee, of the movers and the shakers and the politics and everything that goes into doing public relations and public affairs work. And through that job, I started to do some work for Miller Brewing Company, as they were a big supporter and board role of that nonprofit. And that was kind of my parlay into the industry of advertising agency, PR agency. At that point, there was a startup in Milwaukee, and I was lucky enough to be hired as this agency's first employee. And that was in 94. And that was called Zeppos and Associates. And I worked for a man named Evan and was his first employee. And we really grew and built that agency over 18 years until it was purchased by Laughlin Constable, which would now be 8 years ago. So I've had now a long career in the agency world, but what I always say is interesting is every time you get a new client or a new project in an agency, to me, it's almost like a new job. And the exposure I've been lucky enough to have from working with everything from environmental challenges and mining and PCB cleanup projects, all the way to local hospitality and restaurant and tourism has been just fascinating. And the combination of journalism and political science, I think, has been just a great mix and melding to allow me to kind of have this opportunity to work in the industry.
Did you, so like looking back to when you were in college and where you are now, is it surprising to you where you are? Is this something that you thought kind of would happen?
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back to that mind, what do you think? What do you think you would?
I actually thought I was going to go to law school. I did take the LSAT, but again, I mentioned that economy and those challenges of that time, and I decided I was pretty lucky to have a job and some money coming in. And to younger people on this call that might even be in college now, I found it would be hard to go back, or it would have been hard at that point then to go back and pursue that. And I'd kind of found the right mix that allowed me still to play in that space with the government affairs and public affairs side of it. So other than kind of taking a shift toward law school, I do think in many ways I'm doing things that I was inspired to do when I took that mass media class and when my cousin exposed me to this industry. Did I think I would be in an agency this long? No, I would say that. But either you love it or you don't. And after 22 years, I think I like it.
If there are questions from the participants, please go in the Q&A or the chat and ask your questions. And of course, any of the panelists, I know, we're all communicators, so we're listening and we all have questions. If you have a question, feel free to ask it because I would stick on one person forever, but I won't do that. I'm gonna come back to you, Kristine. So I'm gonna share my screen again so we can go to the next profile here, which I think is Ryan's. Yep, Ryan. Okay, so you're up. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up selecting your major and what inspired you.
Yeah. So as you said, we're all natural communicators. So I just sort of gravitated towards the major. And for me, marketing was also very important. So I can play with the numbers. Maybe that goes back to me, remembering baseball card stats or what have you. But I've always really looked at both. So communications as my first major made a lot of sense because it was media, it was film, it was journalism, getting to the pith of a story, finding out who, what, where, when, why, what really matters, separating the wheat from the chaff type thing. And that was important and pivotal for me to build on. And so communications has really been a bedrock in what I've done across the board. And prior to jumping on, some of us were talking a little bit about social media. And I mean, most of my career, what I'm largely known for is, in some circles, podcasts, but largely social media. And I mean, it's just communications. Like, story goes both ways. How can we get a good story out there? How can we condense and distill and, really get the best information out there? So How'd I start? It was natural gravity. What I've done with it, well, right out of school, I kind of hit the ground running. I got a job actually in finance for a minute. It's what my dad did. I thought maybe I'd be good at that. There was a lot of numbers. It was downtown Chicago. I'd take the L. I had a briefcase. It really felt like I was living the dream. I got paid nothing. I was miserable. I was like, this is not what I'm designed to do. And then at the time, a very close friend of mine, received a scholarship to go down to South America. And she got a 2-year scholarship to do so. And we were very close friends. And so I went down there and figured, hey, I'll go down there and teach a little English. I can just pick it up. We can't do something like that, right? I speak English. I got this. I got down there. I wasn't a great teacher. I didn't make any money or anything like that. So I was like, okay, full stop. I made some money, as a trader. Let's see what I can do for, make a career here. So I started an immersion school, the TUFA local immersion program. And basically it was the program I would have liked if when I went to Argentina. So, we basically taught people how to teach English. People more qualified than me were definitely in charge of that. Tango teachers, Spanish teachers, job placement, all this stuff. And how I got the word out there is I learned web design. I started filming YouTube. I recruited through MySpace, Odeo, which became Twitter. Facebook had just come out. I was able to get on with the .edu. And it was great. And for about 3 years, I was just killing it with this fantastic program, using my communication skills, learning, marketing as well with, email and SEO and SEM. And then eventually just things changed. I wanted to come home, and I came home. And my first job actually coming back was a newspaper. So still in communications. That was The Onion. And I was a sales guy. So Chris, I totally hear you with the thick skin, a lot of no's. Our old VP of sales used to say, if, you call a girl 6 or 7 times and, you say no, like you could be considered stalking her or something, but sales are just getting started. So anyway, The Onion was great. And what it did for me locally, and it introduced me back into the city, right? Like I knew all the arts and entertainment, all the big events, all the bar owners, restaurant owners, Paps, alehouse, breweries, all these things that someone in their 20s would be really, really interested in. So that kind of paved the way for me to, learn more how to connect and communicate. And I knew I didn't want to be at a newspaper forever because people started asking me about social. I'm like, I know how to do that. And so I eventually went on my own to do social and just kind of climb the corporate ladder, worked at Funjet and then Johnson Controls for a couple of years, kind of set the stage there a little bit. It's a big organization for someone like me, but as Dante can attest to you, there was like nobody else. They're just like, hey, help this company run social. And I'm like, okay, I'm not really, it's a little above my fighting weight, but it was fun. And then got into agency life and loved it and did that for a couple of years. I never worked at Laughlin, but I've worked with them. And, there's great organizations with smart people all over this town and region. Worked at Beta Rudder for a bit and, worked with BBK, back with Funjet, and eventually just struck out on my own. So I bought an agency last year, and that had been running for 7 years. So we're officially 7 years in business. And I rebranded Filament Communication into Mention in October. So here we are.
Do you have a class or a professor that you can think of that inspired the work that you're doing? Like right now, you ended up really focused on social. Did something happen in school that took you there, or was it just more after school?
Yeah, no, I would say without question. I mean, one of the things that helped me stand out early was I was super data centric. Social communication's great. People post a pretty picture and be like, okay, good day, we're done. Be like, no, you can post and promote, you're only halfway there. We have to try to get the numbers up and to the right at all times. And so at DePaul, I did have a particular professor that I'm still in touch with, who really, changed the game for me. It was a night school class, and he would have us apply statistics, histograms, all the stuff I didn't want to learn, but glad I did. And it helped me, be able to sell stories with data. Because, you know, storytelling, you know, I have some chops, data, I have some chops, you pair them together, it just makes you stronger. So there certainly was, you know, a standout professor at DePaul University for me.
That's awesome. All right, let me go back to our screen here. Vivian, I think you are going to be the next one up here. So you have a communications background, but it's a little different than the rest of us. Talk to us about your start.
So I, believe it or not, grew up in St. Louis and was in a lot of advanced classes, and everybody back when I was in high school in our classes were saying we're going to be engineers. And so I originally wanted to be an engineer, a civil engineer, and build bridges. And so I went to the University of Missouri we got a day out of, you know, some of us could get a day out of class in high school to go on this trip to the University of Missouri, and found out that there was this workshop over the summer for engineering students or people who wanted to be an engineer. So I went to that. And so I was on the campus for 2 weeks, just like I was a sophomore then, just like I was, you know, a campus, a college student. And so I'm like, okay, that's great. That's great. You know, I'm going to be an engineer. Fast forward to senior year, and we were able to go to the University of Missouri again. And I said, okay, I've already seen the engineering school, so let me listen to see what else do I like to do. And I did like to write stories even since I was in sixth grade. And so I said, oh, I like writing. Somebody was talking about, you know, the journalism school being one of the best, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, okay, I'll go and check out the journalism school. And I went to the journalism school on that trip, and the rest was history. I thought, this is where I want to be. And so that summer, I did another 2-week program at the University of Missouri in journalism. And you know, we had, you know, just great, we could write a story, we could participate on the air, we did a project, we traveled, and I said, this is what I want to do. If I can tell stories for the rest of my life, this is what I want to do. And so the rest was history. And so, you know, they said, hey, you're going to start off in small markets. And so I did. I started off in Alexandria, Louisiana, which at the time was, there were about 300 markets, and it was 188. And so it was very small, central Louisiana. I went to Tyler, Texas after that. I went to Battle Creek, Michigan, and then I came to Milwaukee in '95 and worked for Channel 4. And so I got a Bachelor of Journalism from the University of Missouri. I was doing great, you know, having a great time. I had started off as education reporter, and then I ended up anchoring the midday show, and then I started a lifestyle segment on that show, on the morning show at midday. It was called Viv's View. I could do whatever I wanted because it was new, and so I did, you know, Monday was what's for lunch, and so Viv's View does lunch. So because I love food, and Thursday was Travel Thursday. You know, we also interviewed local celebrities and celebrities that came into town. So it, you know, it was really a lot of fun. And so one day, a friend of mine said, Roundy's is looking for somebody in communications to do news releases and press releases. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, you know, thanks. She says, I recommended you. And I said, yeah, you know, thanks, but, you know, I'm not interested. I had just, you know, started this new weekend morning show, and just me and a producer basically doing, I should say a producer and I, sorry, English teachers and English majors, a producer and I, we're just doing the work, right? And so it was great fun. And so I said, you know, I don't want to leave now. And ended up being interviewed by them anyway because they called me, and I said, I might as well go. And so I went and talked to Bob Mariano, who was the CEO at the time. And, you know, we were just talking about, you know, everything that I was doing. And he said, well, I really, you know, think you would be good for us, and, you know, made me this offer that I couldn't refuse. And so then I was working for a grocery chain. And so then a friend of mine, I did a report. I guess I did I should say an interview or session that you guys had, Corey Joe. I forgot what you called it. Like it was a lunch and learn kind of a thing.
The leadership luncheon.
The leadership luncheons. And so, I think I did this presentation then because I said I went from like just the facts, right, in journalism to my friend said, what are you now? Clean up on aisle 5. And then I went to Aurora Healthcare, and it was a chance to save a life. So, I mean, to boil this down, I really thought that I would be on NBC doing network news by now. And I really thought I would stay in Milwaukee for 3 years and then I'd be gone, because my first contract was a 3-year contract. And I said, okay, in 3 years I'll be gone. But then it was around that 91, well, actually it was around 95. So around 98, there was another recession and people were happy to have a job, right? Networks were laying off people and they were filtering down to, our markets. And so I said, I better stay here. But it's worked out because it has allowed me to do things that, to really follow other passions, follow event planning, follow working with the community, because I really believe in that. And so I just think each step has led me and prepared me for the next step.
Yeah, it just seems like, when in college, choosing that major is sort of that fork in the road. And then each decision or each step you take opens up a whole nother web of things. Talk to us, Vivian, a little bit about what you're doing now and that amazing book that's behind you.
Right. So it's funny because, you never know what's going to be next. And I've always been one. I've never looked back and regretted, because I really do think the next step has always yielded something better. And so I left Aurora when Aurora merged with Advocate Healthcare in Chicago, and I should say in Illinois. And so I could have stayed or I could have left. And the weird thing is, before I had that decision put in front of me, 2 weeks before that, I had said, you know what? God, I really need a year of means so that I can write my book, because I had had a stroke in 2013, and that was a shock to everyone because I was healthy, relatively healthy. I didn't have history of stroke in my family, and the issue was that birth control pills over the age of 40 is what caused a blood clot that ended up causing my stroke. And so I decided, I need to write about that, because half the women I talk to say, oh yeah, I know that. The other half are like, what? I'm still on birth control pills. And so I really wrote the book because that I needed that dialogue. I felt that dialogue needed to be out there. And, I'm very faithful, and I really think that God spared my life, and I'm a communicator. And so I'm supposed to share my testimony with people, and hopefully it makes a difference for them. And so I had said, I need to write this book. I've been trying to do that. You can't really do it with a full-time job. And especially, my job was 9 to 5, but events early and late. I mean, it isn't 9 to 5. And so I said, I need some time to write this book. And so I got the opportunity to do it. And I said, I'm going to take this year and write this book. And that's what I did. And so, I mean, I kind of was sheltering myself. I like to go out and eat. I like to go out for happy hour. I like to do a lot of things. And I said, nope, I need to write. And so I wrote this book. It's when the words suddenly stopped, finding my voice again after a massive stroke. While I was doing that, I did get a part-time gig at UW School of Medicine and Public Health, the Center for Community Engagement. And so it's allowing me to put my communications expertise to their programs, but it also gave me some flexibility to really finish publishing my book and starting to market my book. So here it is. I didn't want to be too marketing, but it is communications and marketing, right?
That's right.
So I'm sure Ryan is very proud of me. Yes, Ryan?
Vivian, I was going to ask you if you miss being on air, but I feel like I've been seeing you on TV and on webinar, on the air talking about that book. So you still doing that too?
I am, and trying to push my team out there to do other things as well. But yeah, so because like you were giving me this opportunity, I'm able to be on the air again. So it's fine. Everything kind of works together for good.
Yep, that is so true. Okay, let's see who we have next. Alex, you're next up. Tell us a little bit about your origins in communications.
Yeah, sure. Vivian, it's kind of funny having a Mizzou and then KU right after. But so I grew up in a suburb of Milwaukee, Whitefish Bay. I was a sports editor of our high school paper, loved writing, loved sports. I think I thought I would write for Sports Illustrated at the time. Just obsessed with sports, played sports. And, something Vivian said really stuck out to me is you have to be open. You never know what's next. And I think pieces of what Chris said and Vivian said and Ryan, it all resonates about it's not only writing, editing, communicating well, it's also this sort of curiosity, right? It's like wanting to know things. And so I can looking back at my history where my first job was like Ryan. I was interested in living overseas. I lived in Japan, taught English. I can remember they gave me this old van and I would teach English classes all around Shizuoka. And I thought, this is the best. I'd totally be happy. I remember parking by a rice field and thinking, man, I'd be happy doing this my whole life, just teaching English in Japan. But decided to come back to the United States and use my journalism degree. My first magazine, kind of real journalism job was for Trade Press. And that was Sanitary Maintenance Magazine about the cleaning and paper supply industry. And I remember some of my old former classmates from KU were like, man, what are you doing? Sanitary Maintenance Magazine? And I was like, hey, it pays the bills, and I'm getting to interview the heads of Rubbermaid and Georgia Pacific and Kimberly-Clark and write about brushes, brooms, and mops. And I think anything, if you put yourself into it and try to do it well, it will open up, more doors. And I've also heard it's not your first job that really kind of sets your trajectory. It's more maybe your second or your third job. And so for me, I got to edit a magazine, I got to dummy a magazine, assign freelance, write, and I started doing more and more writing on the side for Milwaukee Magazine and the Journal Sentinel. Maybe it was just the Journal then. And that was great. And then that led to an opportunity in academia. I was got a job at Northwestern University in Evanston, and I would drive down to Kenosha, get on the Metra, get my laptop out, go to Davis Street, write for Milwaukee Magazine on the side. Then I would work for Northwestern University, and I thought, man, this is amazing. If I could just do this, I had a house in Sherman Park that I bought, and that got to be a lot, an hour and a half each way. So then I worked at Marquette for a little bit, similar thing. And then I was doing, in Sherman Park, doing neighborhood work. We had some issues with some drug houses. And so I would do these neighborhood meetings, and we would have police, and we'd have my alderman, Willie Hines, and we'd have, Public Works, and I would invite them all to have a neighborhood meeting and try to solve some issues. And Willie Hines was sitting in my dining room one night, and he said, man, I'll just tell you what he said. He said, no African-American alderman has ever had a white assistant, but I think it could work because you live in the community. I've seen the things you've done. You care about our community, and I need someone who can help me kind of send our message for the city of Milwaukee out. And you worked with media, and you're in the neighborhood, you know the police. And I was like, yeah, sure, that's awesome. And it was really about him, about that person. And that's often, I think, this, you'll see that thread through a lot of our stories is the people are so important, the people you get to work with. And so working for Willie Hines for more than 4 years in City Hall, getting to work with people like Alderman Murphy and Tom Barrett and Nick Kovac and Malele Coggs and Chevy Johnson, who just became council president, was like a young kid in the mayor's office. I mean, I never had any idea just the rich experiences that would give me. And Corey, I mean, you've been in that kind of world. You have things thrown at you every day. You could be standing in front of a group of 100 angry people who got their basements flooded, and you're trying to communicate and assuage their anxieties. But it's really not just communications, it's knowing what they're experiencing. And it's storytelling, but it's not just storytelling, it's like, walking in someone's shoes. And so that was phenomenal. And then from there, when Act 10 was passed, I remember Willie Hines brought Keith Stanley and myself into his office, and he said, hey, even though we're not union, your salary and your benefits and things are tied to unions. They were this, now they're going to be this. And I just want to let you guys know, I know you have families. I would love for you to work for me forever, but understand if you need to find something else. And I always have really been grateful to him for that, because he looked at me as not just an employee, but as a person. And I said, okay. I went and applied for a job at Northwestern Mutual and got a job there. If you guys know Kwanzaa Newsom, she and I both left city government and went to Northwestern Mutual at the same time, which was awesome. And she had been in media before as well. Always grateful to have worked with her. And I remember Betsy Hoyleman, I think your old colleague Vivian at Channel 4, maybe you too, Chris. I said in my interview with her, I said, what role does curiosity have for the internal communications job you're looking for at Northwestern Mutual? And she said it's a #1 characteristic, going back to what I said. So we can find people who can write, we can find people who can edit, but if you don't have that interest in people and in their stories and what they're going through, it's not going to work. So I learned at Northwestern Mutual how to do a communications plan, how to do corporate communications. That was always, I'm so grateful to that team, Leslie O'Connell, that whole group. And then got an opportunity, I was recruited to go to Johnson Controls to work for a global company, and worked there for more than 5 years. Phenomenal group of folks there. And then got a call about a year ago from a company that I had not known a lot about called XPO Logistics, and based in New York City area, Greenwich. And they wanted someone to lead internal communications for all of their distribution centers and warehouses. And I thought, well, this is a good opportunity for my children to see a different part of the world, a different part of the country, even though we love Milwaukee so much and loved French immersion where they were at school and loved everything about Milwaukee. North Carolina had a lot of good things too. So that's what I've been doing. And sorry if I went too long, but that's it.
Alex, so I think you sent me a video of a feature that you all did on one of your employees. Like, what kind of communications are you doing internally, and are you making it up as you go along? Were there things set in place before you got there?
So right now, because we're in this new normal, sorry, it's such a hackneyed phrase, but we have a lot of our focus is keeping our people safe right now. And every single day we have a business continuity team, and I'm on those calls. We meet every day with legal, with HR, with safety, with operations. And so every day, pretty much, we're putting out new protocols. Okay, now you got to wear a mask. Now you got to get your fever screened as you come in. Now you got to do an employee declaration before you're allowed to work. Here's a new visitor restriction. Here's a new, you got to rearrange all the operations so that you can be 6 feet apart at all times. So it's communications, yes, but it's staying on top of the CDC guidelines. It's staying on top of what the medical experts are saying. And it's really, again, it just goes back to caring for those folks. And I'm on calls morning to night with people who are running distribution centers, helping them through different scenarios. And yes, we do video. We do social. We use the Facebook platform for business, which is called Workplace. And people post there for internal, and only our company can see it. Those are the media that we use, but I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Very interesting. Okay. Dante, you're up next. Tell us a little bit about your initial interest in majoring in speech.
Absolutely. Thanks, Corey Gilberto. Thank you to all of the panelists who joined us today. I decided to major in speech communication at Ripon College, kind of on a reverse decision. I know, Corey Joe, you talked about what are some of the bumps that you experienced along the way. I actually declared psychology as my first major during my undergraduate years at Ripon College, and forever grateful for that experience with Dr. Joe Hatcher, who sat me on his couch and said, you know, if this isn't the direction that you want to go in, you can always change it. And it was the first time in my life that anyone has told me, if it's not truly what you want to do, you can make an adjustment and you can move and you can truly do what will make you happy. And so I opted to declare psychology as my minor and transition to the communication department under Dr. Jody Roy. Both were phenomenal advisors, and both to this day continue to be phenomenal advisors in my life. What was I going to do with communication as a major? What was I going to do with psychology as a major? I really had a focus and a drive well before attending Ripon College to go to law school. And I did not. I know how many of the panelists decided they weren't going to go to law school. But being a Milwaukeean, I grew up in the central city of Milwaukee and actually attended high school on the south side of Milwaukee at Milwaukee Bayview High School. My entire emphasis throughout my 4 years at Bayview High School was law and protective services, with the intention of eventually declaring that I would proceed forward to law school upon graduation from Ripon College. So all of my internships throughout my high school years were focused on law. All of my work experience, from working as a law clerk at the federal courts to Northwestern Mutual's law library, all law focused. And then upon graduation from high school, I was given the opportunity to work for an organization that's now been acquired by BMO Harris, but it was M&I Bank. And as a 17-year-old individual, very scary, but I was a compliance officer on behalf of that organization, and did so all throughout my collegiate years, and even for 4.5 years post-graduation. Loved the experience, loved that I was able to continue being legally minded without actually having a law degree, but didn't like that people didn't like me as the compliance advisor. And what I did find was what I enjoyed most was the interviewing component once I had completed all of my compliance audits and experiences. And so I found, fortunately, an opportunity within that same organization within the HR group, and decided that I was going to be a generalist. I kind of did the flip from most individuals who are in HR. They would typically start in a role similar in nature to myself right now in talent optimization and then specialize and become a generalist. I took the opposite way and did the generalist road within human resources, and found that I really, really enjoyed the recruitment aspect of what I'm doing and what I was doing back then. So after M&I Bank, you probably have noticed my tagline being globally minded, locally focused. And I truly, truly, truly took that to heart as I looked at the organizations that I wanted to be a part of within the city of Milwaukee, as well as nationally. And those organizations were ones that were based here in the city, yet had global reach.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Being organizations like Johnson Controls, Rockwell Automation, and just to name a few that many on this call are connected to. But I certainly, throughout those experiences, have really continued to build the network of individuals who I respect amongst the community, and was fortunate to be able to take on this role within Titus Talent Strategies. I always like to tell the story of how I got here to this organization. I met our CEO, Jonathan Reynolds, well over 12 years ago, received many job offers from him and turned him down. But due to his diligence and really his community outreach and exposure within the community, I had to become a part of Titus Talent Strategies and the great work that the organization is doing. And so did accept an offer with him 3 years ago to be a part of the talent optimization team. And through that, again, showcasing not only right person, right seat, but really the full aspect of what it means to communicate with individuals throughout their job search and communicate with organizations about what their talent needs are. We call it head, heart, and briefcase. We're not only working on what's in that briefcase, but we're also ensuring that individuals have the heart and are intrinsically motivated to do the work in which they're doing, and also obviously the cognitive and behavioral ability to do it. Similar in nature to everyone who has spoken before me, you have to have the heart to do what we do on a daily basis, and you have to have the motivation to do what we do on a daily basis. And I've been very, very fortunate, not only through my experience at Titus Talent Strategies, but obviously coming all the way down from my experience at Ripon College and even Alverno College post for my graduate degree. So just blessed to be a part of those organizations and every other organization that I've been a part of that truly has given me the ability to say that I'm globally minded and locally focused.
It seems like a theme, and Alex kind of alluded to it, is the curiosity about things, but all of us have the curiosity about people, just the interest in what people are doing, how they are, interviewing them, learning more about them. So Dante, when you're talking to people, are you talking to them and picturing them in roles that you know about?
I'm consistently looking at faces and thinking about where they could potentially be with the partners in which we're working with, but also where they could be within our community, because there's certainly going to be individuals who are happy with where they are, but it's my mission and my goal, and even my organization's mission, to find individuals opportunities that are truly superior to what they're doing today. And so when I look at a face, I see that next truly superior opportunity for that individual.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dante. All right, Bethany, you're up next. I'm excited because I'm going to be a little bleep in Bethany's story because we used to work together back in the day. Bethany, talk to us a little bit about your decision to study English at Northwestern.
So, hi, everybody. Before I start talking about the very circuitous path to discovering my passion, shout out to you, Alex, because I went to Whitefish Bay too, and Northwestern, and grew up in Sherman Park. What a small world.
Very small.
Going into college, going into Northwestern, my parents told me you're going to be pre-med. That's it. Got through the first trimester, realized this ain't for me. Then I tried on journalism for size, and my parents figured, okay, this will work. You know, Northwestern's got the best journalism school. She'll find a job. Wasn't for me. There were too many rules. I don't like rules. So that was my second trimester of my freshman year. By the third trimester, I came to the realization that, hey, these loans are my own. I'm going to be paying them back. I'm going to study what I want to study. That turned out to be English literature, and I majored in specifically English literature of the post-colonial African diaspora, and double majored in African American studies. My parents were severely worried about my ability to provide, you know, for myself in the future. But clearly that wasn't a concern of mine because I went on to study what I studied and I fell in love with it. But upon graduation, my parents were still very, very nervous about what are you gonna do? How are you gonna pay back this Northwestern loan? Enter in, my mom said, why don't you go volunteer at the Black Holocaust Museum? They need people. And that's how I met Corey Joe. We were having a griot training, and somehow Corey said something about being an English major, and I felt an immediate connection. I don't know if you remember it, Corey, but I looked you dead in your eyes like, you will be my friend. And we are friends now. How many years later? A lot. But one of the things that I've never actually told Corey, so I'm telling you now, working with you at the Black Holocaust Museum helped me to discover that I could marry my passions and have a livelihood. So I'm very, very appreciative to you for putting me on this path, Corey.
Wow.
So after the museum, and I was there about 3 years, I think, I moved out here to DC, went through a couple different organizations trying to figure out where exactly I could plug in and, number one, write, number two, communicate, and number three, have it be in service of the Black population, because that's my passion. I landed at the NAACP, where I was leading the membership department. And there, you wouldn't think it from the start, but there was a lot of writing and a significant amount of the creation of marketing strategies, a lot of marketing strategies. And oh my God, I fell in love with marketing and with fundraising overall, and just sitting down and being able to talk to people and find out what drives them to do this work. Like, what drives a person to give up every single weekend and every other Wednesday in service of the NAACP. And it was a beautiful, beautiful run. I was there for about 6 years, and then I wanted to move on. And I went to the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights in DC, where I was leading the fundraising shop for a while. And that was another wonderful experience, because again, I was working in service towards civil rights and toward Black communities and human rights overall. I did a lot of writing and loved it. Currently, I'm with the Lawyers Committee on Civil and Human Rights, and I will tell you, this is where I belong. I'm leading the fundraising here, and I'm also working significantly with our communications structure. One of the things I always talk about is that when you marry development, fundraising, and communications, there at the intersection is marketing. And it's my passion, and specifically to be doing it in service of Black America is the most rewarding thing in the world, to be able to marry my love of writing and of talking and engaging with people, and knowing that it's helping to advance the cause of racial justice is just tremendous. And again, Corey, I thank you for that. I hope everybody has a good friend like Corey Joe somewhere in their lives to help them figure out, this is where you can go to figure out your passion and live your best life. I think that one of the big narratives or common points that we've all sort of been talking about, and if you're an English major listening, you're probably wondering, what am I gonna do once I graduate from school? Where am I gonna go? And I think for all of us, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we all sort of had relatively circuitous paths, but they've all been rooted in our fundamental love of communications. And as long as you hold on to that one piece that's your passion and that drives you, the doors will open, and you'll be happy in whatever career path you're on.
Yeah, Bethany, it's so funny that you mentioned those days at the Black Holocaust Museum, because we both were in our pretty early 20s then, and I was figuring it out as I was going along too. I was a English major, and got this right out of college, got this great job at Manpower when the headquarters was in Glendale, and all the flags that you see downtown now used to be right there on Port Washington. And I worked in the sales department for North American sales for Manpower, and I was a proposal writer. So this was, for me, upon graduation, it's like exactly what I was supposed to be doing, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm a writer with this Fortune 500 company. I'm gonna like climb the corporate ladder. But I found that for me, the connection to words wasn't enough, because the salespeople were the folks that were having the conversations and interacting with people, and they would call me and say, this is what you should put in the proposal. And I was pretty much, my relationship was with paper, which was, it was frustrating for me. And I got a call from Marissa Weaver, who was the board chair at the Holocaust Museum at the time. And she says, hey, we're looking for a fundraiser. You want to come over here and write grants so you can switch from proposals to grants? And I was like, sure, I can write, so I could, I'll figure it out. And then from there, I became the executive director of the museum and met Bethany, and I needed somebody to do education for the museum. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's an English major and she studied African literature and studies. I'm like, you're the person. And literally we figured out how to run a museum because neither one of us knew what we were doing. And it's just so funny how your path, where we always stayed friends, but you went down the path that I really kind of expected because you were so passionate. And I used to just call Bethany the light-skinned militant. Because she's always like stomping about cause. So yeah, it's just funny. I really wanted to do this because I think it's so important that people see that no matter where you start, it's just important that you start, but you really can do
Fire alarm.
Yeah, go ahead. Anything that you want to do. And those forks in the road lead to so many different places. So with that, we'll probably go over just a couple minutes because we're right at our time. But I want to ask everyone, I don't know, Bethany, if your fire alarm, whatever that alarm is, we'll get back to you. But I'll start with Chris. So
Sure.
The question I want to ask all the panelists is, of all the things that you've done and all the things that you've experienced, all the skills that you've acquired over this time, is there anything that you're curious or interested about, and what would be your next step? Like, is there something else you want to do? Okay, how about you, Chris? We'll start with you.
It's a very good question. I referenced earlier about agency, and I've been in that world a long time and enjoy it very much. And the dynamics of working for different clients and different interests all the time. But the one area I have not worked in yet is corporate. I've worked in the media, I've worked in the nonprofit sector, I've worked in the government sector, and then in that agency sector. And sometimes I do wonder what that would be like for myself, and maybe that's a future opportunity.
How about you, Vivian?
So before I got to where I am now, I have always wanted to write, well, not always, I should say about 10 years ago, I said I wanted to write a musical, and I still want to write a musical. And a friend of mine who, does branding and is an attorney as well said, well, do you want to make money on your musical? And I was like, that would be nice. And so he said, you should write, because my musical, the main character is a little girl. And he says, you need to write some children's books and get the kids excited about your musical, and then write the musical, and then the kids will bring, their parents and everybody to the musical. So I wanted to do that, and then I had my stroke. And so I wrote this book first, but I still want to write my children's books. So that's next on my agenda. And then ultimately my musical, and then keeping, my business, so that I can still help people find their voice in the media and in the community through workshops. So that's my next step.
Okay, Dante, we'll go to you next.
We talk about next steps. I can't even fathom what next steps will be. Things are so great right now, but it would certainly mean just further engulfing myself within the community in which I live, work, and breathe here in Milwaukee. So whether that be within arts organizations or more community-based organizations, just excited to further contribute. And once these walls are broken, we'll be able to continue to do that. But those are really my next steps as far as career and community.
And you, Ryan?
Well, community, that's easy. I know when I found out Dante lived on the same street as me, I told him we're going to get a beer. He said, all right, we still need to do that. So that's on the docket, my friend. No, community, making a difference, connecting with people, being closer. I got a couple kids, and making sure that, they're going to live in a world that speaks to them, that they're happy about. So there's a little bit of, legacy push there, support the neighborhood, support, just support people. It's all about people. So whether you're in corporate or government or agency, you find out, or nonprofit, I've worked in some of those, and you know, people are always the same. So there's that theme. You know, if we can all be closer together with some of the geopolitical and health concerns going on with COVID-19, I mean, I would think hopefully one silver lining that comes out of it is that we are being brought closer together. I mean, this is so cool that Corey Joe set this up. Some of you I knew, some of you I got to meet. You're all incredible, amazing stories. And, you know, we would not have had this without this. So that's good. Career-wise, you know, gosh, that's tough. My agency's new. I'm going to stick with this, serve my clients, work with clients that, you know, make the world a better place, and help cultivate some talent along the way, and then maybe ship them to Dante, and, you know, and get them some high paying jobs. But yeah, just making an impact, a positive one at that.
How about you, Alex?
No, I'm not sure. Some of the things that Chris was sharing about working in government really, you know, brought me back to working in City Hall, and that's obviously a really invigorating place to be. And that'd be interesting if the right thing came across to work in government, not necessarily politics. But I don't know. I'm sort of very happy. I never envisioned working in transportation and logistics. That wasn't anything I, you know, dreamed of doing. But I'm very. I find it very meaningful. And you know, during this time right now, we see how essential it is. In addition to, you know, medical professionals, of course. So I'm just gratified, and just gonna try to do this job well right now.
And you, Bethany?
So my next steps are, I want to start my own strategic planning consulting firm for nonprofits with a focal point on social and racial justice. Since now I know there is a market for that, and it's my passion, and I want to work for myself because, again, I don't like rules.
Yeah, I asked that question because once we started to be in quarantine, I was really thinking about it. Now I'm producing content for Fuel in a completely different way than I ever have. And every idea that I've had for a webinar, I've been able to do it because I know people that can help me kind of pull it off. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to write a book about networking. And I know books about networking exist out there, but I think that there's a way for people to connect with each other and build relationships that has an authentic heart to it that I don't know that people feel 100% comfortable with. So folks can be really shy or uncomfortable. I think networking is kind of plastic, and I've just never seen it that way because I'm just like, we're just meeting people. So I don't know, I'm gonna put some thought to that and put pen and paper and write something about it. So I don't know when it's coming out, but that's the next thing that I kind of want to explore. So we got to close out here. I thank all of you for being on the panel. We didn't have a ton of questions, but we did have one really nice comment from someone in the chat, and I'm going to close out the session with his comment. Mark Natsky says, I'm really enjoying this webinar and the perspective of all these panelists. Thank you for sharing your day with us. So that's a great way to close, and a sentiment that I 100% agree with. You guys are awesome. Stay safe and stay healthy, and keep doing what you're doing. Okay.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for organizing.